Hi everyone, my name is Jade Calver. I own and operate Calver & Associates Canadian Immigration Services. Today we're going to talk about coming to Canada without your PR card as a permanent resident. After you arrive in Canada as a permanent resident, the card usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks to arrive. In some cases, people will need to travel before the card arrives. The general rule says that you cannot travel, but what does this actually mean? Today we'll look at the different circumstances and situations that you may be in and what to do about it if you're outside of Canada already without your PR card, or if you need to travel without your PR card before you first receive your very first PR card. So the first situation is if you're from a visa-required country such as India and you're outside of the country, you're not going to be able to fly back to Canada if you don't have your PR card. So you're going to need to get what's called a permanent residency travel document, or you're going to have to enter at a land port of entry. So the land port of entry means that you need to go to the United States first. You would fly to the United States, and then you would come to Canada through one of those port of entries. The same thing applies for those who are from visa-exempt countries such as England. You need to either get your permanent residency travel document, or you need to fly to the US and enter through one of those land borders. In either situation, you're going to need a valid passport in order to fly. So if you're flying to the US, you obviously need a US visa if you need one, and then you're going to have a valid passport in order to re-enter Canada. If you don't have a PR card but you're a US citizen, you can board the plane from the US without your permanent residency card because US citizens don't need an ETA. So from the US you would just board the plane, but you would still need your confirmation of permanent residency document once you enter Canada. So it's important that you know if you don't have your permanent resident card, you always need that confirmation of permanent residency document that you received when you first landed as a permanent resident to enter either at the land border, or to show, if you're a US citizen, you need to show it to customs once you arrive back in Canada. If you're a US green card holder, I get this question a lot. So that doesn't really affect you that much. If you're from a visa-requiring country, you would need to get a travel document or again enter through a land border. So holding a green card doesn't really help you that much if you're applying to enter as a permanent resident of Canada. So I get a lot of questions about applying for a permanent residency travel document. So this needs to be done at your local visa office. And it's important to note that there isn't always an office that will process your permanent residency travel document in your country. So for example, I had a Danish client recently who was out of the country without her permanent residency card and wanted to come back to Canada. So she had to apply for a permanent residency travel document through the London visa office. But what ended up happening, because she didn't want to be without her passport when she was in Denmark, she ended up flying to the United States, to a city that was close to Toronto, to Buffalo, and then using her confirmation of permanent residency and her valid Danish passport to enter back into Canada. It's always important to note too that when you're applying for these permanent residency travel documents, you need to be able to show that you're actually residing in Canada, because Immigration Canada doesn't want you applying for this permanent residency travel document if you haven't been living in Canada and you don't meet the residency requirements, which we'll talk about later. So for example, it's always good to include proof of mortgage payments, or rent payments, your bank accounts showing transactions in Canada, maybe some pay slips from your work in Canada, just to make sure that you show the officer that you actually do live in Canada and that you're meeting that residency requirement that's required of Canadian permanent residents. So that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed our video about entering Canada without a PR card. You can visit our website for more information at calverimmigrationservices.com.